You are now tuned in to DameSmiff.
Welcome to Musician Talks with DameSmiff, and today I want to talk to you guys about direction in your music as an artist. Now, before I get started, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and share this video with anybody who's interested in the music industry, improving their soft skills as a musician, or want to just learn about the music industry as a whole. So, direction in your music. What is it, and how can you take an approach towards placing direction in your music, or does your music even need direction? Well, in my personal opinion, direction is more of a choice than a necessity in music. There's different kinds of music out there around the world, obviously, but the reason you make it is going to be one of those reasons. So when I think about direction, I think about where you want to place your audience when they listen to your music. And that's in the artist's control, and it's not necessarily something that can be dictated by an outside source. It's something that, when approached, it has to come from a genuine place for it to actually work, and it can't necessarily be something that is trendy or a fad or things like that. So, to give you an example, if you're writing a song and it's a love song, and you want people to understand what it feels like to be, let's say, heartbroken or something like that, the direction of this song can be determined by the artist. If the artist wants you to become triumphant over the problem, or if they want you to just really sulk and feel the emotion of heartbreak. Now, how they do it is different, but that's not what we're going to talk about today. We're just going to talk about whether or not it should or should not be within your music, or to give you the option to do it. So, for many people who listen to music in general, it's kind of hard to tell whether a song has a direction or not, because influence is something that artists can't control, but it's something that they can cultivate. So, for example, you're on the radio and you hear the love song we talked about that's about heartbreak. For the general listener, it's hard to determine whether or not this artist is trying to make you feel a certain way, learn something, or even see something with a certain perspective, simply because music isn't marketed to the average listener as something that's very in-depth or layered. It's just something that if it feels good, you'll listen to it. If it doesn't, you won't listen to it. You'll change the channel. Now, with that said, as an artist, that can be an obstacle, especially in the music business. If you're in the business of selling records, whether or not your direction or the approach of the direction you're taking in your music can be palatable or even received properly, because like I said, the average listener that consumes music doesn't really have the skill set to identify whether a song has direction or not. Now, this is where you get really controversial conversations about usually politics, religion, cultural things, and things like that. But for an artist, you're in a lot of power in terms of whether or not you want to have direction in your music or not. Now, there are plenty of examples of music that has no direction, where it's just feel good music. It makes you feel a certain way. It's not necessarily supposed to evoke you to learn or see something a certain way. It just sounds good, feels good. It makes you dance. It makes you think, whatever it is. And then on the other hand, you have music where it's supposed to tell a story, tell a perspective, teach you something, represent something bigger than you and the artist or the music itself. And this can be very combustible, I guess. It's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Volatile. It can be very volatile for an artist, because in the music industry, I've heard this quote before, that innovation doesn't make money, along the lines of what that goes. But what that means is that if you try to change what's already working, the odds of it bringing in income or being viable for consumption to the masses, it's very low for that to happen, because you have to get people to get over the learning curve of what you're talking about. You have to get people to be comfortable with what you're talking about, and you have to get people to want more of what you're talking about. So what that means is, if you're an artist, like I've heard on Nas's King Disease. He talks about different stories and aspects of his life where if you're not a person who's looking and want and open to receive information like that, the odds of you coming back to listen to it are very low compared to a song that just gives you a feeling that feels good, and there's not a lot of effort put into the consumption of it. That music that is easier to listen to, you will listen to a lot more based on the probability that it's just easier to listen to, versus a song that has a complete, intro, middle, end, outro, and things like that, and it explains very in detail, or at least very emotionally, the story or information that it's trying to get across. Now, for many artists, both approaches are not easy. So for some artists, it's really important to have some kind of direction in their music because it's formulaic for them. It's easy for them to think of a theme or a topic and cover that and then put it over a soundtrack of music. And for other artists, it's really, really easy for them to just make a mood or a vibe and things like that. But I want to pose a question. As an artist today, do you think it's more important for your music to have direction or not have direction? Just keep this in mind though, to add context to that question. We're talking about the music industry, the business of selling records. So when in terms of selling records, do you think your music as the artist that you are today needs to have direction or it doesn't need to have direction? So that's all I have for you today. This was Musician Talks with DameSmiff, episode 42, and we talked about direction in your music as an artist. And I'm out.